So tonight we will be talking about the Berrong House that is located here in Hiawassee, Georgia. And to start, we will be going over the family and who built the house and their legacy they left on Towns County. And then we will go through some pictures of the house of what it looks like today. Before we begin, I do want to share a poem that was written in 1914 by Joyce Kilmer. The poem is about a house that he walked by in his hometown, but it also, to me, describes the Berrong house, so I felt like it needs to be shared with the group tonight.
Whenever I walk to Suffern along the Erie track, I go by a poor old farmhouse with its shingles broken and black. I suppose I've passed it 100 times, but I always stop for a minute and look at the house, the tragic house, the house with nobody in it. I never have seen a haunted house, but I hear there are such things, that they hold the talk of spirits, their mirth and sorrowings. I know this house isn't haunted, and I wish it were, I do, for it wouldn't be so lonely if it had a ghost or two. This house on the road to Suffern needs a dozen panes of glass, and somebody ought to weed the walk and take a scythe to the grass. It needs new paint and shingles, and the vines should be trimmed and tied. But what it needs the most of all is some people living inside. If I had a lot of money and all my debts were paid, I'd put a gang of men to work with brush and saw and spade. I'd buy that place and fix it up the way it used to be, and I'd find some people who wanted a home and give it to them free. Now, a new house standing empty, with staring window and door, looks idle perhaps and foolish, like a hat on its block in the store. But there's nothing mournful about it. It cannot be sad and lone for the lack of something within it that it has never known. But a house that has done what a house should do, a house that has sheltered life, that has put its loving wooden arms around a man and his wife, a house that has echoed a baby's laugh and held up his stumbling feet, is the saddest sight when it's left alone that ever your eyes could meet. So whenever I go to Suffern along the Erie track, I never go by the empty house without stopping and looking back. Yet it hurts me to look at a crumbling roof and the shutters fallen apart, for I can't help thinking the poor old house is a house with a broken heart.
Now, to begin this, I wanted to start and going over on who the Berrong family of Towns County is, kind of where they come from and who they descend from. So we are going to start tonight with Henry Napoleon Berrong. He was born sometime around 1785 in Europe. No one really knows where he was born. His kids give places of birth such as France, Holland, Spain, and even North Carolina. But we do know that he is from somewhere in Europe. He first married Sarah Coleman. She was born 1785 and lived to 1813, and together they had three children. After her death, he married Mary Ann Bruckert, and they had six children. We'll be following the line tonight of the first child of him and Sarah Coleman, who was Jessie Berrong. A little bit more about Henry. He was a veteran and served in the War of 1812. In the 1870 census, he was living in Towns County, and according to that census, he claimed to be a retired teacher who was born in Holland. In my research, I found a family legend about him that I would like to share. Some say that him and his brother were taken from their father's vineyards, while others says they were taken from a school that they were boarding at in France. But either way, they were kidnapped in Europe and brought over to America on a ship. They were taken aboard the ship that took them from France to the coast of colonial South Carolina, possibly in the Charleston harbor area. Now, while they were at anchor in the port, Henry managed to take leave of the ship by being swam ashore on the back of a man who was making his escape also. Once on shore, Henry found a family in the Charleston area who, according to the tradition, hid him under the front porch steps of the house when men from the ship came looking around for him. The family had told him that they had not contacted the boy, and so the searchers went away. There is no trace of what may have happened to Henry's brother William after this, but Henry had managed to make his escape from the ship. The same family that hid Henry also took him in and gave him an excellent education. He would later become a well-known teacher in the South Carolina area, and later in life was considered one of the best instructors to have taught in Towns County, Georgia at the time. Now, going along, Henry and Sarah's oldest son, Jesse Berrong, is who we will talk about a little bit next. He was born in 1806 in South Carolina and died in 1884 in Upper Hightower. That is where Henry Berrong, Jesse's father, settled when he moved to Towns County. Jesse was married to Susan Chastain, and they had a slew of children, as you can see, like many families did back then. There is a family account I also wanted to share. It's actually how Jesse passed away. It says that while he was out working, he got a rye seed stuck in his eye when he was working in the field. The pain was so severe that it drove him mad. So while his family was at church, he took something that he thought was medicine that would help heal and alleviate that pain, but it ended up being poison. Because of this, he managed to live for 1 week after taking the poison, but he did ultimately die. But he was able to tell his family what had happened. In the 1885 minutes of the Hiawassee Baptist Association record, Susan Berrong was listed as a consistent member at the Baptist Church for 49 years. She and Jesse are buried in the Upper Hightower Baptist Church Cemetery amongst all of their children. Now, Jesse's youngest son is Jesse Miles Berrong, and that is who we are going to be focusing on who built the Berrong House in Hiawassee. So Jesse Miles Berrong was born in 1860 here in Towns County and died in 1939 in Towns County. He was a graduate of Tallulah Academy in Rayburn County in the class of 1878. After that, for several years, he was engaged in merchandising in several areas, including Burton, Clayton, and Hiawassee. He was also a member of the Masonic Order, serving as Worshipful Master and Secretary of Unicoi Lodge No. 259. He was a very large landowner, and he dealt in real estate, and he was also a partner in the Berrong Johnson Copper and Pyrite Prospect, which was located on Fodder Creek. In 1885, a biographical sketch of him was written in Memoirs of Georgia, and it described him as a man of strong and forceful personality, very energetic and persevering, and whatever he undertakes he does with all his might. Add to these characteristics a pleasing address, affability, and courteousness, and the product is a man of influence likely to secure any office of distinction. He is a striking type of a class of young men coming to the front in Georgia and the South who will control the future of the state. He is already a conspicuous figure in politics of his section and makes his influence felt. He is a recognized leader, has frequently represented the county in political conventions, and is a prominent in Northeast Georgia. As a partial recognition of his merit and services, he was appointed in May 1893 to the United States Commissioner at Hiawassee, an office he creditably and acceptably filled and retains. Again, this was written in the Memoirs of Georgia in 1885 describing him. Now, J.M. Berrong first married Lily Jane Kitty McConnell. She was born 1862 and 1895. They had 3 children, Fielding Pope, Olive Christine, and Maybelle. A little bit more about Kitty McConnell Berrong. They were married March 12, 1885. She was the daughter of William Ross and Jane McConnell. You may recognize those names because that is also the parents of the Reverend Dr. F.C. McConnell, who McConnell Memorial Baptist Church is named after. Together, again, they had 3 children, J.M. and Kitty did, and unfortunately, on October 12, 1895, she died during childbirth, and her infant are buried together at the Berrong family plot in Hiawassee. Now, after her death, J.M. did remarry. The original house that he had built for him and Miss Kitty to live in was located on Berrong Street, just down the road past the hardware where the Nicholson family currently lives today. The house is unfortunately no longer standing, but we do have pictures of it. After J.M. remarried and built a new house, which is the house we were talking about, he donated this original house to the Hiawassee Academy, and it was used as the girls' dormitory. He donated it in memory of his late wife, and it was called the Kitty McConnell Berrong Memorial Hall. Now, on December 28, 1899, J.M. Berrong would then marry Margaret Wade Maggie Corn. J.M. is remembered as being a mover and a shaker, a merchant, realtor, public servant, and community leader. Together they had 3 children, but only one survived past birth. Her name is Susie, and she was born 1906 and passed in 1986. Now, a little bit about Miss Maggie. She was born Margaret Wade Corn. She was born in 1870 in Towns County and died 1961 in Towns County. She is the daughter of John Heatherly Corn Jr. and Sarah Elizabeth Dillard. She was very well educated. She received her education from the Hiawassee High School and Junior College, Cox College, Georgia Female Seminary, which is now Grinnell College, Georgia Normal Industrial College for Girls, and the University of Georgia. In fact, Dr. F.C. McConnell said that she was the first woman to attend college from Towns County, and she was very much considered the most well-educated woman in Towns County at her time. At the age of 17, she did begin her career in education, which is what she is most remembered for today. She was chosen to head the illiteracy campaign for Towns County following World War I. These night school and home-to-home visits stirred up much interest all over the county. More than 200 old people were able to learn to read and write. To Miss Maggie, this was a thrilling experience to help those who had never had a chance to read their Bibles, to read and write letters to their children, to sign their own names, and even to read letters from their relatives. She is most remembered for her home demonstration work, which she took over in 1920 as the county home economics agent. Now, next, we are going to listen to Miss Maggie's final summary report to the State Extension Director, which was written in 1944. The summary report just recaps her time and her experience in extension since she started in 1920.
My own work began in 1920 organization of the 4-H clubs in the public school in the county. Up to this time, there had been no teaching of home economics in any school in Towns County. In order to start this kind of work in the high school at the county seat, to which girls came from all sections of the county, a friend of mine agreed to pay part of a salary to the County Board of Education, provided they would cooperate in the employment of a county home demonstration agent. It was in this way that my work was set up in both the high school and public schools of the county. This proved to be the most effective plan for getting the extension program started because I could better reach other girls in the public school communities by having a class of club girls as my pupils in the high school. However, home demonstration work was, at that time, a new kind of education and was not a popular movement. Although the girls readily took an interest in this new education, the parents frowned on it. So it took time, patience, tact, and perseverance to keep the project going. There were many times when it looked as if the undertaking would have to be abandoned. This was in the days when this form of education was in its pioneer stage in many other counties. However, after a quarter of a century, I have the satisfaction of seeing home demonstration work firmly established in Towns County, as well as all over the state. Since Towns is my native county, I feel that I may be permitted to say that I have a real pride in what has been accomplished. Today, the extension work is fairly well organized in each community. We have not only the 4-H clubs for girls, but the older youth which we call the Booster Club, and also the women's home demonstration clubs, which take in every phase of home life. The work thus reaches practically every farm home in the county. There is no longer any opposition or lack of cooperation. The results are to be seen everywhere in the making of better homes, better farming, also better roads, better schools, better churches, and a higher, more progressive type of citizenship in every part of the country. Home demonstration work has come a long way since its simple beginning in 1916. The machinery of the farm home now functions more smoothly because the farm woman has learned to budget her time and energy, as well as her money. Good taste in clothes and amusements have been developed, and the home is made a place where the child is better cared for.
Now, following the death of J. Miles Berrong, Miss Maggie would divide her time between here in Hiawassee and in Falls Church, Virginia, which is where her daughter Susie lived. I have an excerpt here from the Towns County Herald that was written December 5th, 1935, and it's an article about Miss Susie's wedding, and I wanted to share it with y'all tonight. Miss Susie is the one who would inherit the Berrong house from her mother. A wedding of great interest to their many friends was that of Miss Susie Berrong of Hiawassee, Georgia, to Mr. Thomas Richard Oakley of Sharon, Pennsylvania, at the Calvary Baptist Church in Washington, D.C. The bride's wedding gown was made of green crystallite velvet, fashioned on empire lines with a draped neckline and long flowing sleeves. She wore a small veiled turban of matching crystalline. Her flowers were Johanna Hill roses and lily of the valley. She was given in marriage by her uncle, Dr. Charles Dickett Corn of Greenville, South Carolina. Miss Berrong, mother of the bride, wore electric blue velvet with a corsage of gardenias. The bride and groom left by plane for New York, where they will be for several days. The bride threw her bouquet from the plane just as they were leaving. After the wedding trip, Mr. and Mrs. Oakley will be at the Miramar Apartments in Washington, D.C. Miss Maggie died in 1961, and she is also buried in the Berrong family lot in Osborne Cemetery in Hiawassee next to J.M. and their infant children that never made it past birth. She was remembered as being a community spirited, an educator, and devoted to the service of others. This is a wedding invite from Miss Maggie and J. Miles Berrong. This when they were married, Wednesday, December 27th, 1899, in Visage, Georgia. Now, for those who don't know where Visage, Georgia is, that is actually the Hightower community today. And this is just a picture of the Teachers Institute at Hiawassee Academy taken sometime around 1900, and Miss Maggie is there in the red circle there. This is another picture of a home demonstration club meeting that Miss Maggie hosted at her own home. Again, the red circle is Miss Maggie. And this is another picture taken at the McConnell Memorial Church Old Folks Day back in the late 50s. Miss Maggie is there in the front row. And this is one of Miss Maggie's domestic science classes, otherwise known as home economics, at the Hiawassee Academy. So now we're going to talk about the house that J. Miles built for Miss Maggie after they got married. The house was built sometime around 1905, and it was built by local carpenter Bart Lockaby. We'll recognize this name because he built many of the houses in the area, and he was known for the gingerbread house trim, as well as the gables that he built on his houses. He also would have built the first house that J. Miles lived in with Miss Kitty McConnell. He also built the House of Seven Gables, which was located in the Hightower community and was also owned by part of the Berrong family, and several other notable houses in the area that are unfortunately no longer with us today. This house is believed to be one of the few remaining, if not the only remaining house that Bart Lockaby built. For the time that it was built, it was considered to be extremely elaborate. It consisted of a grand staircase, parquet hardwood floors, and even closets, because you didn't have closets back then unless you were very wealthy. This is a picture of the house taken around 1920. This picture is the front of the house. It's taken from about the area that Main Street is today. Now, for those who don't know where the house is located, it's just up the road from where we are here tonight at the Civic Center. It's located behind Main Street Grill and the Hiawassee Budget Inn. In fact, this picture at the bottom of this hill in front of the house is roughly where Hiawassee Budget Inn is today. This is another picture of the house and fields that was taken around 1970s from the side of the house. This is taken from the area of around Dairy Queen area, right in there. Today, at the bottom of this hill at the side of the house is Oakmont Drive. And you can see the barn there in the background. It is actually still standing, but it is also grown up in trees that it's hard to see, as well as the house is now from the road. In the fields here, former sheriff that lived in the Old Rock Jail, Ed Barnard, he actually kept horses in these fields in the barn during this time. So now we're going to do just a quick little virtual walkthrough tour of the house, and I want to give a special thanks to Bruce Roberts, who is a Historical Society member and also a local photographer, who did take these pictures and provided them for us to use tonight. So this is just a view of the house at its current state looking at the front corner. You can see the gables that are on there. Unfortunately, the gingerbread house trim is no longer on the house. and has been removed at some point, probably around the 70s or 80s, when the house did have some renovation work done to it. So as you come along up the driveway of the house and go past the front, the driveway wraps around to the side, and this would be your view. And then when you pass down the driveway to the back of the house, this is what you would see. So coming into the house, this is the grand foyer. So if you look at the back of the picture, there is a door that's been boarded up. That is the front door to the house. So we're looking at the front door of the house right now from that view. Unfortunately, in the recent months, there has been some vandalism in the house, or some things have been stolen. You'll see in this picture. Unfortunately, some of those things have been doors, doorknobs, and some of the fireplace mantles. So this is looking back from the front door to the grand staircase, looking toward the back of the house. So as you come in the front door, just to the right is the lower floor main parlor. A lot of the in the house is a lot of the original furniture that was owned by J. Miles and Miss Maggie Berrong. And passing through the main parlor is the dining room. You can see it still has a lot of the original furniture, but it also has the original built-in china cabinet in the wall. The house also has transom windows above all the doors. This, in the time of not having heating and air, central heating and air, the transom windows would allow airflow from room to room without having to have the doors open. So as you come in the front door on the left side of the house is the lower bedroom number one. You can see here, and if you kind of look at the floor, you can see some of the design of the parquet floor there. Not all of the rooms have them, but some of them do. And this is just another picture of that same bedroom. You can see the closet there. Again, closets were very rare back in the time this house was built, and it was a sign of having money and being wealthy. You'll also notice that there is a sink in the bedroom there. So just down the foyer past this bedroom on the left is the lower level bedroom. Probably was used as the master bedroom because it is the biggest room on the lower level. It also has a large closet there that you can see to the right. And this is that same bedroom, and you can see it also has a fireplace in it, but unfortunately the mantle is no longer there. So just through that main bedroom, you can access the back dining room or the kitchen nook, breakfast room, whatever you'd like to call it. It is right there off the kitchen, and you can see that it also has some of the parquet wood flooring in it. Now, one thing I would like to note about the chairs that you see in this picture, those chairs actually belong to Miss Kitty McConnell, so J.M. Berrong's first wife. They were brought with him from the original house when he moved into this house. They are just the old-fashioned straight leg wooden back chairs that have the woven bottoms in them. So passing through the breakfast room, we come to the kitchen. Unfortunately, it's not the original kitchen anymore. It's got an upgrade in the 70s. But again, you can see the parquet wood floorings a little bit in there as well. So now we're going to go upstairs, and this is one of the bedrooms that are upstairs to the left of the stairs. This picture is actually really good at showing the design in the wood flooring. And this is another upper level bedroom. This is probably the largest on the upper level. As you can see, it has 4 beds in it. This was probably the kids' room at the time, or the grandkids' room when they would come down to visit. This room is located toward the back of the house. Now, one thing you'll notice if you're ever in the house is when you go up the stairs, the temperature changes from it increases about 10 to 15 degrees is what it feels like. It gets very hot up there even in this springtime when it's still fairly cool. So the house is actually very well insulated, probably from the thick layers of the plaster walls. And this is just another bedroom that's on the upper level. This one has two beds. It's not as big as the other two bedrooms, but it's still a sizable room for its time. Now, just outside of all of the bedrooms, we have the upper sitting room or the upper floor parlor, however you'd like to refer to it. I imagine this room was probably used as an office area for Miss Maggie at one point because there is a desk up here. Again, this is just another view of the upper floor sitting room, and you can see that desk in the back corner there. And this is the grand staircase. You can see the detail in it. How it still has the original newel post and also has that nice curve there at the top. And this is just another view of the grand staircase looking down on it. And finally, another last view of the grand staircase. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation of the Berrong House and their legacy that J. Miles and Miss Maggie left on Towns County.